This video is about the town of Clackmannan, which is located to the south of the Ochil Hills and just to the northwest of the new Kincardine Bridge. As explained in more depth in the first video about Cunninghar, the determination of the 35 metre sea level height is based upon the time when the Forth Valley estuary reached the floodplains at Pitgober near Vickers Bridge to the east of Dollar. This flooding was caused by the isostatic depression of massive glaciers pushing central Scotland down into the ocean, combined with the rising global sea levels from the melting ice caps. There has been a lot of debate about when this would have occurred, but it is likely to have been somewhere between 11,500 BC and 6,300 BC. So at this time, the island of Clackmannan could well have been an important stopping off point for seagoing hunters, before venturing deeper into the vast expanse of the ancient Forth estuary to the far west, or heading around Tullibardine along the hillfoots to beyond Dollar in the northeast along the ancient Strath-Devon estuary. Looking west from the island of Clackmannan, in the distance, there would have been an island on the left, Castle Hill, where Stirling Castle is located today, and on the right there would have been a second island, Abbey Craig, where Wallace's monument now stands, and Ben Lomond and Ben Ledi would have stood behind them in the far distance. These two Stirling landmarks, only 1.5 miles apart, would have stood like two guardian pillars, perhaps acting as a symbolic gateway to the west, giving access up beyond Aberfoyle, and in particular to Dalmary near Gatmore, which, on the assumption that the sea level rise was consistent across the Carse of Stirling, would have been by far the easiest point to cross over land to Loch Lomond and onto the Clyde and the Irish Sea. But there'll be more about that in a future video. Clackmannan Tower sits on the crest of the hill at about 58 metres above present-day sea level, while Craigree Farm is down at about 10 metres, so the ancient 35 metre point would have been just over halfway between the two when viewing from the south. The grounds of Clackmannan Church are close to the old shoreline, facing south across the water. On the north side, the seawater would have come up just beyond the trees in Kirkwynd, and almost to the top of Cattle Market, just opposite the town hall in the east. At the southeast, only the top of Isaac Terrace and the junction to Castle Street would have been above water, and half of Garden Terrace would have been submerged. The glebe, and where it connects to Port Street, would have been just a few metres above the shoreline. It is assumed today that Port Street was given its name because this was the road down to the old harbour that was located 3/4 of a mile away down at Powside on the Black Devon near the Forth. But rather than Port Street stopping at the right turn down Craigree Road, which is the main route to Powside, it actually continues on another 200 metres, heading off in a totally different direction towards Chapel Hill. This does make me wonder if this route is maybe much older, from times when the Forth sat close to the village, and that this ancient road led directly to a smaller port in the form of a slipway for casting boats into deep water, and that today this slipway might well be underneath the tarmac on the upper slopes of the Lookabout Brae. I would also speculate that there might have once been a lookout point on the higher ground above, located around the site of the old chapel well, and that this is where the name Lookabout Brae actually originated. This seems to tie in with the theory in the book by Reverend T. Crowther Gordon, who believed that before the Stone of Mannan was moved up to the square at Market Cross, its cellular location was likely to be down near Chapel Hill Well, and that the primary reason why the chapel was built near to or on top of the sacred site of the old pagan stone was because of the common practice of early Christianity attempting to eradicate all physical traces of the older pagan religion. The source of the name Clackmannan is steeped in ancient prehistory. It is well known locally that the word Mannan has Irish Gaelic roots, but after doing some deeper research I believe it could also have much earlier Eastern origins. In Irish Celtic mythology, Manannán MacLír was a deity who controlled the sea and the waterways. He was also a guardian of the boundaries between the mortal world and the other world, the seen and the unseen. There is also a very similar early biblical meaning to the word manna, which states, "To him that overcomes," meaning the mundane world, "I will give to eat of the hidden manna." And in this context, manna refers to the miraculous food provided by God, which I believe is a symbolic representation of the spiritual benefits which normally go totally unseen by the uninitiated, but that are obtained during the final stages of enlightenment or spiritual awakening. Manna in this respect is derived from the Hebrew word man, meaning what is it, which is very similar to the Eastern Advaita Vedantic meditation technique, where the question, "Who am I?" is constantly repeated to oneself in the practice called self-inquiry. The Sanskrit meaning of the word manana also originates from the root word man, which also means to think or to reflect, and it is associated with the process of self-contemplation, meditation, and deep wordless understanding through the veil of the mundane world towards spiritual enlightenment. There is so much commonality amongst these meanings that I think it is very possible that the ancient island of Clackmannan was a place where it was once believed that people were entering from the mundane world on through the gateway in the west and into a world of ancient mystery and magic of the snow-covered mountains and glens of the Ochils in the north and beyond into the highlands. Interestingly enough, in 1609, when Henry Hudson started the exploration at the entrance of what is now called the Hudson River, there was an island on the right-hand side that the Native American Lenape people called Manhattanna, and this is now called Manhattan Island. Interesting that both Clackmannan and Manhattanna are both islands near the inlet of a new world, and they both contain the word manna. In ancient times, when people's values would have been very different from today, when they were not psychologically tied down with a common predetermined education based upon modern-day materialistic and consumer-based values, they would have been totally free to contemplate the original untarnished realities of nature, with no restraints whatsoever. So I believe the name Clackmannan has some very ancient links to deep spiritual beliefs. Perhaps entering the fourth estuary was seen as the final stage of a long treacherous sea journey from the Mediterranean, and Clackmannan was a final stop-off point before proceeding west towards Gartmore, or around Tullabuddy towards the foot of the Ochils. But again, all of this is just speculation on my part, as none of this could ever be proven either way. Before the stone-built structure of Clackmannan Tower was constructed, it appears that there was a Motte-and-Bailey settlement at this location. The Motte-and-Bailey was built from earth and timber sometime around 1150 AD, during the reign of Malcolm IV, as a hunting lodge for the King's Forest of Clackmannan, as it was mentioned in royal charters in the 1200s. And when looking at the Lidar image of the ground around the tower, it appears that the Motte-and-Bailey structure could well have been located on the levelled off surface just to the west of where the tower stands today. Around 1264, the timber fortifications were replaced when construction of the first stone-built tower began at the location of the present-day tower. The simulation here shows both constructions in place at the same time, purely for clarification of the possible location of the Motte-and-Bailey. But when the stone tower was built, the wooden structure would probably already have been dismantled and the area levelled off. The original Clackmannan Motte-and-Bailey was very likely constructed in the 12th century, as for Scotland this was a relatively new design, based upon the influence of the Normans in the south. But before this Motte-and-Bailey settlement appeared, it is possible that there could have been earlier native timber forts in this location, as there is archaeological evidence of Neolithic and Bronze Age settlers in the form of roundhouses and prehistoric artefacts found on surrounding raised farmland. The upper areas of Clackmannanshire probably had a host of ancient settlements, standing stones and relics, but I suspect most of these were destroyed by farming, and more recently by industrialists, just as many of them were in the farming areas of Perthshire and Angus. So at the moment we can only imagine what was located there beforehand over the millennia since the first visitors arrived, when the River Forth was flooded right up to the far end of the Carse beyond Stirling. Well, that's about it for this video, so thanks for watching. And if you liked this, please like and subscribe on YouTube or share on Facebook to help the 35 Metres channel grow.